Hello everyone and welcome to Hangouts on Air. I'm Partho Shwed from the Google AdWords team, and today we'll be taking you through a small run of how to optimize your AdWords account. On that note, let's get started. Just before we begin, I want to let everyone know that this is an interactive event. So there's a Q&A app, so if you have any questions, you can post them over there and we'll be more than happy to look into it for you. Okay, so let's look at the agenda for today. Today's session is broken up into 6 parts. We'll be talking about the structure of your AdWords account, understanding your key metrics, setting up your keywords and your ads, looking at the various tools which will help improve performance, and finally, we'll also be talking about setting up your business goals. Okay, so on that note, let's start with the first step, which is the structure of an AdWords account. Now, when you look at the structure of an account, how it works is there is an AdWords account at the top, followed by your various campaigns, within which you have your ad groups, ads, and keywords. Now, one question which we are very frequently asked is, what exactly is the point of having a campaign and then an ad group? If you look at the screens right now, there is a difference between the kind of settings that can be done at a campaign level and the settings that can be done at an ad group level. So let's say that you're selling cupcakes and you have 2 different stores in 2 different locations. Of course, the competition which you face and the amount of money which you would like to spend for every campaign will also be different. So accordingly, based on the kind of location that you're targeting and the competition you face, you can set up 2 separate campaigns. Now, once you set up your campaigns, you need to also make your ad groups very well structured. Now, why do you need to make them well structured? Because how an ad group works is any keyword in an ad group can trigger any single ad. If you look at the examples there right now, we have ad groups for tables, beds, armchairs, and couches. And every ad group has its own specific ads and keywords. That's the whole point of having an account wherein the campaigns determine your budget and your location settings, etc. And your ad groups determines that the relevant ad shows to the relevant user. Awesome. Moving on is the overview of certain things which you are going to be interacting with very often. The first thing are your keywords. So simply said, keywords are search terms which will trigger your ads in Google. So depending upon your business and depending upon what exactly do you think a customer will search with when searching for you on Google, that's where your keywords come into the picture. Moving forward are selecting the bids. Now, a bid is something which you are willing to pay for a click on Google AdWords ads. Now, one thing you need to keep in mind is that even though you set a ceiling limit, which is known as the max CPC or the max cost per click, system will only make you pay enough to beat your competition. So if you have a max CPC of, let's say, $2, it doesn't mean that every single time you get a click, you'll end up spending that much money. It just means that's the maximum limit you're willing to spend. You might even spending as much as $1 to trigger an ad on the top of the page. All right, okay. Moving on, this is a small mock-up of a structure of an AdWords account. If you can see here, we have your keywords, we have your ad groups, we have the max CPC showing, which will basically tell you as to what keywords do you have, which ad groups do they belong to, and how much is the max CPC that you've set for them. Okay, now let's move on to the second thing, which is understanding your key metrics. Now, these are essentially things which you'll be looking at on a day-to-day basis to sort of analyze how well your account is performing. The very first thing are your impressions. Now, what are impressions? Anytime your ad is seen on Google, it's basically referred to as an impression. Compare that to clicks. So anytime a person has seen your ad in Google AdWords or on Google search partner sites and has clicked on the ad, that is counted as a click. Now, one very important metric which our advertisers always look at is the click-through rate. Now, your CTR or your click-through rate is the number of clicks that you receive divided by the number of impressions you've taken to accrue those many number of clicks. If you look at the small graph here, you will notice that if you get 1 click out of 1,000 impressions, it means the CTR is 0.1. Now, just to give everyone a heads up here, given the fact that AdWords will always have a lot of advertisers bidding for the same sort of keywords, generally a CTR of around 1 to 2% is actually considered to be very, very high. So if you are running AdWords accounts and you notice a CTR of 1%, it's actually a very high performing AdWords account. Of course, it depends from industry to industry as well, but given the amount of competition you face, your CTR will generally be around that range. Okay. Now, let's again come back to your AdWords account and see how exactly these metrics show. As you can see here, we have the clicks column, the impressions column, and the CTR column as well. So whenever you're trying to see as to which keywords of yours are getting a lot of impressions, which keywords are getting a lot of clicks, you can simply come into the account and take a good look here. Perfect. We'll now pause and check if we have any questions. We don't have any questions as of now, but as I said in the beginning, this is an interactive session. So any questions that you guys might have, feel free to post them on the Q&A app and we'll be happy to look into it for you. Awesome. So let's go to step 3 now, selecting quality keywords. Now, before we can dwell into what exactly quality score does, just look at the example we have highlighted for you here. So let's assume that you're a bakery and you're selling cakes, cupcakes, etc. Now, it's very much possible for someone who's a bakery to have a keyword like cake. Now, how Google AdWords works is it tries to match your keywords with the most relevant searches which it can find. Now, if I've done a search with the word cake, on a rare chance, it's possible that Google shows an ad for cake recipes. Now, a bakery will essentially try to sell its own products, whereas someone who's baking a cake at home will look for cake recipes online. Same applies for the rest of the examples that we've highlighted as well. That's where you need to come in with quality keywords. So in the previous slide, if you looked, we had keywords which are a little generic and could have triggered ads or queries which are not really relevant for us. If you look at the best practices here right now, you will see that if you're a bakery, having a keyword like custom cake is more probable to get you a relevant query in Google. Similarly, if you're a flower shop, having a keyword like flower delivery will get you the relevant clicks and impressions as well. Perfect. Moving further, let's look at the 4 keyword match types. Now, there are 4 types of keywords which we have in an AdWords account. They are broad match modifier, phrase match, and exact match. Now, we'll look at these keywords one by one. Now, first thing is broad match. Now, how broad match works is it tries to trigger an ad even for queries which are, let's say, misspelled queries or synonyms or close related searches. If you look at the example here right now, if my keyword is women's hats, then Google can even trigger an ad for buying ladies' hats online. So if you're the sort of business wherein you are aware of the fact that the product is such that there are multiple ways for people to find the product online, that is where your broad match keywords would come in. For businesses which are looking for something little more specific, that's where your broad match modifiers come in. Now, what is the difference between the two? Simply put, in a broad match keyword, in a broad match modifier keyword, we add the modifiers or the plus sign before the words. Now, how it triggers is, if I have a broad match keyword which says women's hats, the ad will trigger as long as there are things like women's hats or ladies' hats, etc. But in a broad match modifier keyword, any word which has a plus sign before it, it becomes a mandate for a person to be searching on Google with those words for your ad to show. If you look at example here right now, the keyword is plus women's space plus hats. The only time an ad will trigger is if a person has gone to Google and actually searched with the words women's hats and hats in it. The moment there's a query done on Google without the word women or without the word hats, the ad will not trigger. So always keep in mind that you only add the plus sign before words which are critical for your business, and avoid sort of having the plus sign before any articles or prepositions, because that might result in the ad not showing for certain queries. Perfect. Next is your phrase match keywords. Now, phrase match keywords, as you can see, are used basically inside these quotation marks. And what it basically means is the keyword, the search query on Google should be exactly in the same sequence as your keywords. If you look at example here right now, if the keyword is women's hats, the ad will only trigger if the word women is preceding the word hats and a query is done on Google. The moment I search with the term hats for women or any query on Google wherein the word women does not come before hats, the ad will not trigger. Where exactly should we use phrase match keywords? So for businesses which are selling products which have a product code, and if you are aware of the fact that people will be searching for you online with a product code, that's where your phrase match keywords will come in. And getting to the most specific form of keywords, the exact match. So let's say that you have a business wherein you know exactly how a consumer will search with, and you do not want your ads to show for anything else, that's where exact match will come in. If you can look at the example here right now, if the example, same keyword, women's hats inside the square brackets, ad only triggers if the query is women's hats. Any word removed or any word added, the ad will not end getting triggered. So if you are 100% sure of the kind of queries that people will do on Google to find you, that's where your exact match keywords will come in. Okay, now we move on to writing relevant ads. So we again get a lot of questions around how to write relevant ads and how to ensure that the quality score of the ads is good. That is exactly what we'll be covering in the next set of slides. Okay, so first let's look at the various components of an ad. So an ad has a headline, which is the very first thing a person will read when they see your ad in Google. It has 2 lines of text, basically a small description about the product that you're offering or the service that you're offering. The display URL, which basically is the URL you want people to see. Mostly it'll be your website's homepage, and the final URL, which is the page people will be led to. Now, one very important point to notice here is try to always ensure that your final URL is a page which directly adds value to a customer. If I'm a business selling a lot of products online and a consumer has searched for a very specific product, it doesn't make sense to guide him to a page from where he has to navigate the website and find the product by himself. So preferably lead him to a page which already has the direct information. Okay. Now, here are things which you need to avoid. So if you look at the example right now, the headline is high quality furniture, description line says wide selection of furniture, description line 2 says traditional and modern styles, etc. So come to think of it, if a person is looking to buy something online, they might be a little more specific in terms of whether they want to buy a table, a chair, or a bed, etc. Now compare this ad with our very next ad, which says buy high quality armchairs, wide selection of fabrics, etc. Now from the perspective of a person who is actually looking to buy an armchair, this ad will be more relevant and will provide him more value. So the incentive to click on this ad is much, much higher. So whenever you are setting up your own ads, whenever you are creating your own ads, try to ensure that the ads are as specific as possible and give out as much information about the specific product. Okay, now let's move on to one more important thing. So make sure that your ad text is relevant. Now, when we say that your ad text needs to be relevant, we basically are trying to ensure the fact that any words that you have as keywords, which are responsible for triggering that ads, try seeing if you can either have those same keywords present in the ad text, or at least try ensuring that you talk a little about those keywords in the ad text, because that way you'll be able to establish a connect between your keywords and your ads. One more important thing to keep in mind is that whichever keywords you have, try to always also have them present somewhere in the landing pages, because if a user is searched for an armchair and he ends up landing on a page that talks about tables, he might not really go ahead and make a purchase. So always be cautious about the text of the ad and as well as the landing page you are sending your users to. Okay, next is one very important tip: have at least 2 ads per ad group. Now there are a couple of reasons why we recommend doing that. First and foremost, you get to be a little creative with your ads which you show on Google, so you know as to which ad gets more clicks than the other one. Secondly, when you look at it from the perspective of your consumers, you can't really judge from the beginning itself as to what will really induce people to click on the ads. So it's always preferable that you have 2 to 3 ads created, basically giving out the same information but in different words. Let these ads run for a span of about, let's say, 2 weeks time or even a month's worth of time, and then you'll be able to see which ads have gotten more clicks and which have gotten more impressions. You can accordingly pause certain ads, or maybe if you feel that a certain kind of messaging is working really well for you, you can create more ads like that. Okay, one more important thing is to also consider mobile customers. Now, we are staying in a time where everything is shifted to mobiles, right from ordering food to ordering your tickets online. So one thing which you've noticed is that of late people have also started buying a lot of services and products on a mobile device, and people are always on the go. So in the AdWords account, you also have an option of creating mobile copies for all your ads, which basically means that a single ad has 2 versions of it, one for a desktop, one for a mobile. If a consumer is searching for the ad on a desktop, he will see the desktop preferred ad. If he's searching on a mobile, he'll see the mobile preferred ad, which will fit his screen well enough, and he'll be able to click on the ad and sort of make a transaction as well. Okay, no questions as of now, but as mentioned in the beginning, this is an interactive session and we are open to all the questions that you guys might have. Okay, now we'll move on to the 5th step, which is using tools to improve performance. Now this is essentially very important because we need to not only run our AdWords account and structure it well, but we also need to look at a couple of things to ensure that our performance is up to the mark or up to a certain standard. So the first thing which we discussed earlier was quality score. Now, quality score is basically an estimate of the quality of the keywords which you are using. Now, it's reported on a scale from 1 to 10, and we need to basically look at how exactly is it impactful for you and how exactly it can be measured. So there are 3 essential factors which play a part in determining the quality score for keywords. One is the expected click-through rate. Basically, for every ad group that you have, our system will analyze the set of keywords, the set of ads, and the landing pages of those ads. Now, based on how relevant the keywords are to the ads and how relevant the ads are to the landing pages, system will determine whether this particular keyword will be able to get a lot of clicks or not. Accordingly, system will give a rough figure, and that's where your expected click-through rate will come in with. The second thing is the ad relevance. As discussed earlier, any keywords that you have, try having them present in some form or fashion in the text of the ad. Then only will the ad be relevant to the keyword. Finally is the landing page experience. Try to make your landing page as consumer friendly as possible and try to give as much information about the keyword as possible. These 3 things combined basically give you your quality score. Now, where does your quality score come into the picture? It comes into the picture when it's trying to sort of not only help you improve your position on Google AdWords, but also in determining whether your ad will trigger or not. I'll give you a rough example here. Let's say that you're bidding £2 for a keyword, and the quality score for that keyword is 10. Now, how the system works is it'll multiply your quality score, which is 10, by your CPC limit, which is 2, and your total score becomes 2 10s are 20. Now, let's compare this with your competitor who maybe has a bid of £4. But let's say his quality score is only 4. So his total score becomes 4 into 4 equals 16. So even though he's bidding twice as much as you are, at the same time, we are still 4 points above him. Not only does it mean that when Google is deciding whose ads to show on the first page of Google AdWords search, not only will your ad take the precedence, but your ad will beat him in terms of the position as well. So always keep these 3 things in mind when you're setting up your AdWords account and you're setting up the ads and the landing pages. But also ensure that once these things are taken care of, you will also be able to have a better position on Google AdWords, and ad will show much often as well. Okay. Next thing which we look at is the ad rank. Now, Google basically uses the ad rank to determine whose ads will appear and on what positions. Now, there are 2 things which I discussed in the previous slide make a difference to ad rank, which is your maximum cost per click bid and your quality score. So we often get a lot of questions from our consumers saying that my impressions are really high and I'm getting a lot of clicks as well, but the ad rank is not really that good. That's basically an incentive for you to look at your quality score and see if it's well optimized, and also to look at your max CPC bid. You can probably compare your bids with the market price, for which you can add a column on the keywords page, which will give you an estimate of how much to bid for, and you can accordingly increase or decrease your bids to make sure that your ad rank is in place. Okay, now next is ad position, deciding where your ads show online. So now Google AdWords is comprised of 2 networks, the display network and the search network. The Google search network is basically showing your ads in Google, and basically based on your bids and your quality score, system will determine whether your ad will be shown and on what position will the ad be shown. Now, talking about the display network is basically a collection of many Google search partner sites and various Google-owned properties like Google Finance, YouTube, etc. Now, based on the targeting method that you have in a display network campaign, it could be your keyword, it could be interest, etc. And based on the bids that you've set for them, the ads will get triggered in a certain position. Okay, one very important thing to also keep in mind are negative keywords. Now, let's look at the example here in the slide right now. As you can see here, we are a high-end watch store, which basically means that we are selling slightly expensive watches. And we find out that our ad is also triggering for a query like cheap gold watch. But what we're actually selling is a proper gold watch. If you realize here right now, the word cheap is something which should ideally not appear, which should not be searched with on Google for our ad to trigger. So what we simply do is we analyze every search term, which we'll discuss in the next slide, by the way. We'll analyze every search term, find things in the search term which are not relevant for us, and have them as negative keywords. Now, if we go to the next slide, this is the tool which I was referring to. There is something known as a search terms report. Now, how it works out is for every time your ad is shown on Google, Google AdWords comprises a list of search terms, which basically is every single query on Google which has triggered your ad. Now, for whenever there is a search term, whenever you go through your search terms report, you'll be able to see, whether the ads have been triggered for something relevant or if the ads have been triggered for something not so relevant. If you're happy with the search term which has triggered the ads, then your account is well optimized. But if you feel that the ad is still getting triggered for something not relevant to you, you can certainly add that as a negative keyword as well. On that note, we have a first question. So it says here that as you say 1% is also a good CTR, then when we see the performance of any ad which is having around 1 to 2 CTR, why it shows that your ad is performing low? Okay, awesome, very good question here. So thing is, the ad position or the CTR is not the only metric which we look at when we are trying to assess the performance of the account. You also look at things like the ad position, look at things like the quality score, etc. So there are various metrics to look at which we had discussed previously. Always try to keep in mind the fact that if you're trying to ensure the optimization of your account, ensure that your ads are relevant to your keywords. Your keywords and ad is relevant to your landing page. Your CPC bid is somewhere around the market competition, which you can look at via the bid estimates. And once all those things are in place, the ad will start performing well also. So a couple of metrics which you also always need to look at. And very good question once again, like I said, we will also be discussing about measuring the impact about these keywords later on. Okay, so moving back, so we just discussed the search terms report bit. Now, the next thing we look at is just a small recap of what we've learned so far. So this is a review of the account structure. As you can see here, we need to have campaigns based on the amount of competition we face and on the basis of the amount of, the location where you want to show our ads in. And accordingly, to make our ads well structured and to make our keywords well structured, we set up various ad groups as well. Okay. So we have had one question so far, and once again, if there are any questions, feel free to pose them. And we will now move on to the final step, which is tracking business goal success. Now, before we move on to this, one very important point, regardless of the fact that, whether you are measuring the impact of your AdWords account performance or not, it's important to have some system in place which will tell you as to which keywords are performing well for you, which ads are performing well for you, etc. So in the next couple of slides, we'll sort of give you an understanding of how you can measure the impact and also know how to act on the intelligence gained and further optimize the account. Okay, so there are two related concepts which we'll cover here, which is the return on investment and your conversions. Now, when we talk about conversions, there are three essential questions. What exactly are the people? Who exactly are the people who are taking a desired action on your ad? So you could be a person selling cupcakes online, which would ideally mean a purchase. You could be a blog and you would like people to sign up for your newsletter. Or you could be a service which tries to get as many phone calls as possible, whereas that is the case wherein you would expect phone calls to your store. By measuring your conversions, you can see as to how many people or how many customers are actually seeing your ad in Google, clicked on them and actually gone ahead and taken a desirable action. And how exactly is all this measured? It's measured by our conversion tracking, which we'll be covering in the next set of slides. Okay, now why exactly do conversions matter? Simply said, they matter because they tell you about your return on investment. So here is an example in front of you right now. Let's assume that you sell 6 products on Google Ad, 6 products via a Google AdWords campaign, and you take $100 each to produce them, right? And let's say that the total cost incurred in selling them is an additional $200. What this basically means, if you do the math, is we'll move on to the next slide here. So this is a small representation. Just a heads up here. This is a brief way of how you can calculate your return on investment. Of course, it will depend from business to business. But just to give you guys an idea of how you can calculate it, or if you already do not have a formula in place, you can certainly refer to the one on the screen here right now. So let's look at what we are working with. So you're selling a product on Google AdWords, which takes you $100 to produce. Now you incur $200 in clicks to sell those 6 products. Now if you come down to the next part, you will see here the production cost is $600. Add to it the fact that you have made sales of $1,200 because every product has been sold for $200 each, and you incurred only $200 in Google AdWords. So when you are calculating your return on investment, you will basically be looking at your total sales minus the AdWords cost plus production costs, divide by your AdWords and production costs. When you do the math, you'll be able to see that we've made a return on investment of 50%. If you think that is good enough for you, then it basically means that your account is well structured and there's nothing else which you need to do. Probably it also provides you with the option of getting more businesses online or trying to play around with the account a little bit more to further increase your return on investment. But if on the other hand you feel that you could do much better, then that basically means there is scope for you to optimize your keywords, as discussed earlier, by looking at the probable match types, adding negative keywords you think are irrelevant, by looking at your search terms report, probably creating 2-3 more ads to see what really is going to get a consumer clicking. And finally, if you feel that an ad group in itself needs better structure, you can split up an ad group as well if it has more than one verticals being promoted in it. Okay, now talking about the conversion aspect, the first thing you need to know is you need to connect your ads and your keywords to your business goals. Now when we say that, so how conversion tracking works is, for any keyword which has triggered an ad in Google, and for every ad which has gotten you a click, and then a desirable action has happened, the system will be able to tell you in your AdWords interface as to how many times the keyword has gotten a conversion and how many times an ad has gotten you a conversion. So a good practice here will be to start your AdWords account let's run for about a month's worth of time, have conversion tracking implemented, and then measure the results. That will exactly tell you which keywords are your high performing keywords and which ads of yours are doing really, really well for you. Second thing which it will also tell you is to spend your budget wisely. If you realize that certain keywords have spent a lot of budget but have not really gotten us the relevant results, it ideally means that either that keyword needs to be changed or that keyword needs to be paused. and that same money could then be put towards the keywords which has been performing very well for you in the past. So that's how conversion tracking tells you what has worked really well for you, and also tells you how to sort of allocate your budget in the best possible manner. Okay, and these are a couple of things as to a couple of conversion metrics and what exactly do they tell you. The first one is conversions. Conversions basically tells you that whether ads are getting you the relevant results or not, whether they are getting you purchases, whether people are filling out a contact us form, whether you're getting any hot leads from the various ads you're showing on Google. Second thing is converted clicks. So converted clicks basically refer to every AdWords click that has led to a conversion in some form or fashion. Your converted clicks is a metric which will tell you how many of your clicks are actually resulting in consumer buying behavior, resulting in a positive response for you. And how you can work on that, you can gauge the percentage of converted clicks and see as to how many clicks of yours are resulting in a desirable action. If you think that given the amount of competition you face and given the industry that you're in, if you feel that it's a very good number, then it probably means that there's no that the conversion tracking has done its bit for you and told you exactly how it needs to be done. But if you feel that the converted clicks are really low, it probably means that there is some scope for improving our ads and keywords to increase that number. Finally is the conversion rate. It basically means the percentage of clicks that have led to conversions. So basically the second and the third point tie up together. It will give you an understanding about whether the business is indeed working as per your preferences or whether it needs something to be changed. Final is basically your cost per conversion. It will tell you whether the AdWords account has been successful enough for you in terms of getting you the relevant conversions, or whether you feel that something else needs to be done. On that note, we have another question from our AdWords community. It says, for ad position, the ad position is a good strategy because it is shown on basis of CTR. Sometimes keywords won't target relevant ad. Let's just read that question once again. Is the ad rotation a good strategy? Because, oh, absolutely. So what the question basically says is, so there is this concept of ad rotation, wherein you can basically run the ads for, so let's say you have 2 ads created in your AdWords account. You can decide to run them for a span of, let's say, 1 month. With, if there are 100 impressions which you get, you can run one ad for 50 impressions each. Now the question here is whether that is a good strategy or not. To answer that question, it is certainly a good strategy. The reason being, you can't really gauge the performance of an ad if the 2 ads have not performed equally. I mean, one ad would have gotten you 10 impressions, the other ad would have gotten you 90, and then if you start comparing the impact, it won't make much sense. So if you rotate your ads evenly and let both the ads run for the equal amounts of time, you will be able to see as to which ad has gotten you a better CTR, more number of clicks, etc. So always keep that in mind whenever you're running your AdWords account. Okay, we will now move on to the next slide, which was about questions. And we just answered that. Okay, so following up now is to setting up conversion tracking. Okay, so there are 4 things which you need to look at when we are setting up conversion tracking. It's the conversion window, the count menu, the conversion value, and the code snippet. Now, first let's look at the conversion window. Now, the conversion window basically is the amount of time that you are willing to give to a consumer to basically make a desirable action, which could be a purchase or a sale, etc. So if you set a conversion window of 30 days, it basically means that from the time a user clicked on a Google AdWords ad, he has 30 days to either buy a product or fill out a contact us form for that to be regarded as a conversion by you. The bigger the window, the greater the chance of a person being a conversion and showing in your AdWords account. But based on your business, so basically what we are trying to look at here is, if you're a business which is selling very high-end costly products and there's a lot of competition, ideally I would recommend having a longer conversion window, because a person has a lot of choices to pick from, and it's a big investment on his end. But if you're a business which is selling fast-moving consumer goods or goods which will not involve a lot of research from the consumer, then you can have a slightly smaller conversion window as well. Second is the count menu. Now, you can choose to either count all conversions, or you can choose to count only the unique conversions. Now, if you're a business for which a conversion is the actual sale of a product, which means an inflow of money from the consumer to you, in that case, you actually count all the conversions. The reason being, every conversion is getting you business. But if a conversion for you is the simple filling out of a contact us form, ideally I would recommend that you count just the one conversion, because it might be possible that the consumer might have 2 questions, but he might have asked them in 2 separate forms. But at the end of the day, it's just one lead for you. So, based on what conversion you're tracking, you can decide whether to count all of them or just count the unique ones. The third thing is the conversion value. Now, in an AdWords account, you can do three things. You can either choose to have a conversion value of 0. That means if you are sort of tracking your leads and if you're not really sure if they'll convert, you can assign a value of 0 to all of them. If you feel that the value of every conversion is the same, you can decide to put in the AdWords account that whenever a person fills out a contact us form or fills out an inquiry form, let's say it's worth $10 to you. Finally, you can also dynamically modify a conversion tracking code so that every time a conversion happens, based on the product which you sell, the value will be dynamic. So if you're selling a product for £50, system will report the conversion value as 50. If you sell a product for £70, system will report a conversion value of 70. And finally is the code snippet. Now this is a very important aspect of conversion tracking. For conversion tracking to work, there is a small snippet of code which actually needs to be placed on the various crucial pages of your website. Now, when you say crucial pages, these are the three things which you see here. So if your business goal is to sell products or sell services, you would ideally place the conversion tracking code on the thank you page. That is the page a consumer is led to once he's actually purchased the product. If you're trying to get people to sign up for your newsletters, you'll ideally place the conversion tracking code on the complete page. So a person has browsed to your website, he's really interested in what exactly you're talking about. He's filled out a newsletter sign up form. The moment he's filled it out, he'll be led to a new page, a page giving him a confirmation that he signed up. That page is where the conversion tracking code needs to be placed. Finally is the lead generation. If basically, let's say you have any inquiry forms or contact us forms, once they've finished the form and clicked on the submit button, they might either go to a new page or might either stay on the same page, depending on how your website functions. Place the conversion tracking code accordingly. This is basically how the conversion tracking code looks like. Just a heads up here, when you're setting up conversion tracking in your AdWords account, you will automatically reach this page. So it's not very tough to find this conversion tracking code. At the same time, you can also refer to the AdWords Help Center for finding this particular code there. Okay, now let's move on to the concept of tracking phone calls as conversions. Now there are certain businesses for which getting phone calls is very, very important. What those businesses can do is they can track phone calls as conversions and see the amount of impact Google AdWords has for them. How exactly do they achieve that? So basically, Google will replace their phone number with something known as a Google forwarding number. Anytime their ad shows, so let's say the number is 1234, Google will replace the number with a Google forwarding number, which could be 7896 anything. They'll click on the number. The moment the number is clicked on, AdWords will report it as a click or as a call on your AdWords interface. So you will know how many calls you're getting on AdWords, etc., and how much time those calls are lasting for. But the call will get connected to you ultimately. So basically, at the end of the day, you are getting all your consumers to give you a call. At the same time, Google is tracking how many people are clicking on the ads and how many calls you're getting per day. We will now pause for any questions. No questions as of now. So this is just one last, summation of what we discussed today. Try to always ensure that your AdWords account has at least 2 ad groups, has at least 2 ads per ad groups, has at least 5 quality keywords and 5 negative keywords which are not relevant for your business. Check the search terms report weekly and track your business goals as conversions to know the impact of your AdWords account. What's next are the couple of AdWords resources. You can give us a call, email us, chat with us, or use any of the social media platforms. We'll be more than happy to answer your questions. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you attending this event, and we hope this was beneficial for you. And as always, feel free to post any questions that you guys might have. Thank you.